Okay, it's Thursday, February 16th. This is an end of the day SPY recap. And today we end up with a red shooter bar where we, from yesterday's inside bar, we kind of started near the low end of that bar, the low end of the pre-market range, which is the range between these two blue lines. And then we failed heading lower. We started up on the day. It was possible we were crossing the midpoint of that day and possibly heading to the opposite end of the range, and then at the end of the day, the market really sold off strongly and ended up with a shooter bar. So there's a lot of little things to discuss here. First of all, with the shooter bar going into tomorrow, you certainly expect it to follow through a little bit lower with this kind of bar, and possibly a lot lower. But at the same time, it's a shooter bar, a reversal kind of looking bar in the middle of a big range. So it's a lot more meaningful when these shooter bars happen like up here near the top of a range and fail, and then that will start down. In the middle of a range, we could just come right down and reverse and get a big hammer bar going into into the next day and then start up again eventually. So while we expect a little follow through lower, it really has to continue on red all day long and for it to really be a potential breakout. But it is possible, so we'll keep an eye on that. Also, we're coming to the end of a week. We have one more day to go in the week here. So what it looks like is, if we follow through really strongly tomorrow and get a 2-down week, we get that week, and then in order, normally when you get an inside bar, a break to the downside, you're expecting this target to be hit. So that would all have to happen in one day, and that's a pretty long way down. So again, anything's possible. You can get that actionable signal on a Friday and head all the way down, but I would think that's less likely. So you'd have, first of all, we might not even get that signal, and we could end up with a double inside week. So keep an eye on that. I don't think we're going to get an upward move to take out the high tomorrow. We might just end up the week in two inside weeks and then look for something powerful up or down, or a failure or whatever it is into next week. So keep that in mind. But if we get a big down continuation tomorrow, we're going to have to get an actionable signal below this line. And that's going to, if we can't reach this target, then you have to know next week maybe we're failing on the inside bar to the downside, and we can start up at any time too. So still a lot has to happen for the market to really, after this uptrend for a while, reverse back down. And today was certainly a failure, but it's still a failure within a big range. So I'm not convinced what that means next necessarily. We just have to trade it day by day. And then I guess we'll look at that today. A lot of people are having trouble in this market, I gather, with all the choppiness up, down. But the way I like to look at the pre-market range and opening price action, it really hasn't been all that difficult. And the fact that I like to take base hit trades kind of into the first move of the day, that even makes it more powerful in terms of taking advantage of this price action. So today, just looking at the 15-minute chart, again, the market really pre-market went, had a big drop. But you're in the middle of a range, so it doesn't mean it's going to necessarily follow through. And in this case, I shot a video where I bought calls right here on bar number 3, and I also discussed how in this area right here might be a good pause area to exit or scale out. And it was a nice morning trade up in here. We had a little bit of finally after a lot of choppiness, we went up. This was the obvious pullback, and then the secondary move started up. At this point, it was possible we were going to continue all the way higher. But as soon as you got the failure here with, a little, maybe an hour to go in trading, that was the sign that, at least on a day like this, you weren't going to get that, continuation all with a lot of momentum to the upper, the top of yesterday's range, which it looked like an outside day might be developing early. But then this kind of price action right here, touching the high, on the secondary move of the day and then kind of failing, it was kind of over. So you were really in long here and out over here. And then this is not, something like this just isn't surprising in this environment. It's not expected, but it's not surprising. So now we come all the way down and close with a big shooter bar. Some of the things we have to monitor for now, I think there's about 8 trading days left in the month. This is the monthly chart. So all of a sudden, this month of February is not really following through all that strong. It's still possible that we could maybe head up into next week or something, but it almost looks like we're going to close with a weak follow-through bar, and maybe that means 2 down into March. So that's getting closer and closer, and especially if we take out the open of this month and turn this month red. So we'll keep that, next week we'll really kind of tell the story of how this month's going to end. So we're keeping that in mind, and at the same time, we're building up a very interesting double inside bar here on the weekly chart. Let's just assume tomorrow it doesn't follow through all that much, or if it does, it'll be a signal that might not reach its target. So you don't know if it's going to get continuation into next week. Although if we do start down, with a two down, a break to below this bar next, on Friday, then I probably would look for continuation into next week a little bit as well. Maybe a compound move to take out some of these stops. So you can see with this pivot machine gun here on the weekly chart, it is possible to any down move could really build up some momentum. So I'm always keeping that in mind. But I also, finally, the bigger picture, and this is where there's a lot of things going on at one time, you're breaking out of that key liquidity area, and this is the area where we're pausing. That's all we're doing. And are we going to fail in here and come all the way back through the range, or is this just a pause to start eventually higher? And it's certainly taking its time doing so. So anyway, today, not really a tough day to trade at all, because all you could do is really get long here. And then it was a pretty nice move for at least the morning session all the way into the afternoon. And there was some nice gains here. And there was no reason to be, doing anything during this area here. And then when you see the shooter bar, now you're expecting lower tomorrow, but we'll see where the, the opening ranges and everything else. And again, in this whole area here, right now, just keep in mind, you're still in the middle of a range. So we'll see, if we can build a momentum tomorrow to the downside after a bar like this. But I wouldn't be surprised if it chops around, another day. So let's just see what happens, and we'll go from there.